like it? Oh, fucking, you're creeping me out, man.
Do you want to know what the mirror holds for your future, Thomas? It says you're going to win a scratch off for $5.
What's going on, everybody out there? All the host heads, all the people out there that tune into the show. We absolutely love you.
Yes, as we say, coo, 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 coo.
What's
up, everybody?
What's going on? It's Happy October. We're getting in the thick of it soon. This is like we'll be essentially a week within Halloween, which is pretty interesting. I'm excited.
Is that a giant glass of juice?
No, it's iced coffee.
Oh, the red's making it look like it's juice.
A little bit of the liqueur.
Liqueur.
So I've been doing that, which is kind of fun. I just I let the coffee sit, and then I just fucking throw a bunch of ice in there and have some of the little mixture stuff, and it's pretty good.
Little boozy flavors. I got a super light vodka seltzer right now. I put like just a tiny bit of vodka in it, just to get the lips loose, get the words flowing.
That's not a bad idea.
Billy's cringing right now because we're talking about what we're drinking.
Yeah, it's true. He's like, oh God. It's just something we do. I'm never gonna fucking stop it. It's just part of the show because we are Strange Brew, and the thing is, slowly, you'll probably see me drink less and less because of the use of psychedelics. But for certain episodes, obviously, I'm gonna kind of get a little buzzed up. I took 3 of my microdosing pills, so I'm feeling pretty good in the morning. I was tired, didn't sleep well last night and shit like that, so I'm ready to go.
I went the lower potency ones that you took this weekend?
Yes, and
those sound really nice.
I like that. I said that to Aaron that it's pretty interesting that like some blue meanies I've heard, and they were my favorite so far, but they're also really high potency where you like see tons of visuals, but also you're like very like in yourself, like, oh man. But these ones, it was light where I'm like, I could have a drink, I could smoke some weed, where normally I wouldn't do that till like 4 or 5 hours after, where I'm just kind of coming down. And I was like, I could go to a concert, I could do things on the mesotepic ones. Mesotep, I think that's what it's called. And
I had
they're fucking. I liked it. It's different. They're one of my favorite kinds now for doing stuff.
Fuck yeah! I had I think I took like 4 of the capsules during Tenacious D of the Penis Envy ones, and
I've
had some edibles with those. That was a real good time. I mean, I was drinking too, but it was.
You fucking took microdosing pills. So what? A P8 or something? Or were they a P2?
Something like that. It was. I would say they're maybe a P5, so they were half a gram each pill.
Oh, so you took like a gram and a half.
I took about 2 grams.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I took about 2 grams. Yeah, I have a stupid high tolerance for drugs. Like I can mix like no one's business, and
I don't like mixing.
It's a family thing, dude. Like my whole family is we develop very high tolerances very quick.
I don't like
doing
mixing
psychedelics since I was a teenager, so
I don't like mixing booze with it. I've noticed. I've done it even Friday. I'm like, I'm gonna let loose, and I'm gonna like have drinks because like whatever. I started a job, like everything's going pretty well. Chelsea was at a funeral, so I was like, I had time to myself. I was like, I'm just gonna have some drinks too, and then like I don't know where to stop, and then I'm like up in the morning hungover, where I need not to mix because it changes the trip essentially.
For sure.
But yeah, for anyone that's tuning in, you can look up Psychedelic Tripping Life is a new Instagram I started, and I'm gonna start like doing maybe some small YouTube videos and categorizing in my trips essentially, and the way that different strands make me feel. I was talking to a buddy, and he said that's a good idea, and I should probably do that. So for anyone like tuning in, like that's why you subscribe to the YouTube too, because there's also different content that's gonna be coming through there. Where I might, it depends how I'm feeling, but during a trip, I might film myself halfway through it, for 5-10 minutes and explain what I'm feeling on these different types of strains. So like, I've had Golden Teacher, B+, Blue Meanie, and now the Mesotep ones, the Mexican ones. And so I'm going to start categorizing them and actually because I'm kind of experimenting and I'm an experiment doing this, I'm going to start doing something fun with it. I like psychedelic art and stuff like that. So, and this is kind of interesting too, because like, when was the first time you heard about like black mirrors or scrying?
I mean, during my teenage years when I was really getting into the occult and various forms of divination, because I didn't have access to tarot cards until I was in grade 11, I want to say. to say it in your terms, you fucking Canadian bastard.
That's true.
And that's when I got my first deck of tarot cards, which was, of course, the Thoth tarot deck, the Crowley, because I was
Of course you
obsessed.
fucking
Yeah,
did.
of course.
I got like the little, like I think my mom got it for me. Maybe I got it from like a bookstore. Because I've said that story before where I was in that city when I was like, mom made me go to school. She's like, you need to go back to school. So I would always have some change or some little bit of money. And I would go to this bookstore that was in this city that I was going to school at because she worked there. And I would just buy books because they're going out of business. So I was buying like books, like JFK books, stuff like that. And this was like when I was like fucking 16.
Yeah.
So like I still was super into this shit, and this is when I was starting to get my toe into the water of like conspiracy and stuff like that. Because I was always into paranormal. If you've listened to the show, you know that I've played around a mess of Ouija boards that will lead up to our Halloween special. But this is kind of in the same realm to me of like trying to contact something from another side using a mean.
It's absolutely divination. It's the same thing as any other form of divination. Same thing as cards. It's the same thing as runes. It's the same thing as fucking crystal balls. It has it has more parallels with crystal balls than with any other because they are a scrying like a tool.
I have rune stones actually too. I have them somewhere, which is kind of fun. You shake up the bag. They're very nice made.
So I feel like I've talked about this on the show before, but when I was hitchhiking, we would do divination for donations when we were out. That was our thing, like our busking, because we didn't play instruments and shit. And I read runes, and my buddy read cards because I brought them both, and he'd never read runes before. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'll do that, and you can use my cards because he knew how to read tarot. And we do that when we go park up in little shops and stuff. If they were cool and they'd let us hang out there, and it'd be like, well, how much does this cost? It's like, it doesn't cost anything, but if you feel like, throwing us a couple bucks for the road or whatever, fucking we accept donations.
You're one of those like goth kids. It's like super into the occult shit.
I was. No, I absolutely was. So like, so to get back to the scrying thing. So the first thing I had was a black bowl. Like a plain black bowl that I would fill with water because that's the first thing that I learned to scry in was water. Like when you do like drawing down the moon when you get into Wicca when you're a fucking teenager and shit.
Did you see it? Did anything happen? Did you ever have?
Yeah, I've had experiences. I don't necessarily remember a good portion of them as the tradition. But just mild stuff. It's more insight into your unconscious than it is necessarily direct fortune telling, unless you are fully on board with the fortune telling and the divination stuff. But I'm always that person that's like there's a lingering bit of doubt in my head. So it's but and then that mirror my brother made and gave to me.
He made it?
Yeah, he scratched all the fucking stuff off of it, and it was originally a mirror, and now it's just a beautiful scrying mirror.
We're gonna get into like how you're supposed to do this, but I heard that you could even just take Oh, weird. It's still kind of reflective though a bit.
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be reflective.
I heard that you can literally like take a mirror and paint it black and it can still serve the same purpose.
Yes, you can, because it's still going to be glass and it's still going to reflect unless you put like that super matte black on it. But even then, all you're doing is you're gazing into the abyss, like Nietzsche said. Sometimes when you stare into the abyss, the abyss gazes back into you.
Is I've yet to do that, but when I take higher doses, I really want to do what you've done, and I just want to like sit in a dark ass room and just stare. Like I've done it when we've done like movies outside, is like look into the darkness, but I would love to just like pitch black room and just stare and see what the fuck I can see.
My favorite thing to do was like early in my psychedelic usage would be to go over to my friends' places or whatever, because I was still living in the city at the time, and they lived out where there was grass and stuff. So we would just wait until like, we'd drop them or whatever around 8 or 9, and then it would get really dark. And on a nice clear night, we would just lay in the grass and stare at the sky.
Because I've done it when we've been outside watching movies. The stars and when you look up is fucking crazy because it looks like things connect and shit like that, and they reflect differently. And it's
dude, you think that's crazy though? Like, go to a place that has as minimal light pollution as possible and do it.
Yeah.
You want to fuck with your head, man. Like, that's the whole, like, you start doing that, you have those moments where you're like, how the fuck can anyone in their right mind believe that we could even possibly be the only thing that there is?
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
when I was driving we drove to California at one point in time, and we drove through the desert, like the New Mexico, Arizona desert in the middle of the night. Like, it was like 3 a.m. There isn't a light for miles. And you look up and you're like, that's why they call it the Milky Way. Because it's just It's so
Yeah.
textured. There's just so much going
So
on that
many
you're like,
stars and
dude,
shit.
this
Oh
is
my
why
god.
our ancestors worshipped the sky.
Yeah.
Because like if you were a primitive person and you looked up and you were just like, yep, nope, that's God. Cool.
Yeah, weird. And yeah, it's just, it is. It does make you think. You know, I'm not someone that believes that we're the only thing out there. It's impossible.
I don't think most of our listeners are those kind of people either. I think.
No. So, what is Black Mirror scrying? And as Anton pointed out, at the beginning, I kept saying scrying, and like I was like, and I've known about this for a long time. Like the same time around the Ouija board, I never used it, but looking into the dark and the occultism stuff and spirituality, I did hear about it as a teenager because also I messed around with Ouija boards since I was like 12.
Yeah.
So I knew about this stuff, but I never used it. This freaked me out more than the Ouija board because you're like
Why?
looking in because you can see like to me the Ouija board you're contacting something where it's speaking through your energy. Where this it's like you could actually see something extremely scary if some sort of demon or dark energy quotations was around you.
So the way that I used to do it, and I don't know if we're going to get into it with this, but like when I had the bowl that I would do it with, is I would take a handful of herbs, generally stuff that I would get from the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah,
You know, like varying like lavender and other offerings that you would have, and I would burn them in my cauldron, and I would allow the smoke to drift up to my face.
yeah.
And if I had like some leftover stems or something from some weed, I'd put it in there as well. And then you
Fucking
look
witch.
through the yeah, I mean I am, but it's neither here nor there. Uh, you look through the smoke into the mirror, and that's how you can really get shit to start like
Oh yeah,
popping.
that's
You know,
fucking trippy.
like you want to freak yourself the fuck out, do it like that. But you can also do it with a regular mirror. The one weird experience that I had, I'll talk about later. But that
Yeah.
wasn't with an obsidian mirror. That was with just a straight up mirror.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I always tell the potency of psychedelics by staring into a mirror, and then if I like start staring and I can see some, I'm like, oh fuck. Where the ones I took, the lighter ones, the Mexican ones, they weren't as like you every strain you look different in different ways.
Are you saying the Mexican ones are lazy?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of fucking true though. They're not as
We love our
potent.
Mexican listeners. That was a
Yeah.
joke.
But it's fucking interesting because you start to see things. You're like, who am I? What is this shit? What is life? How real is this? Like, and stuff like this, and the occultism also makes you question a lot of that stuff.
Well, we've talked about this before, not to get too off topic when we're on the scrying thing, but like for me with psychedelics, one of the most profound things that I had happen to me was when you reach that moment, not necessarily of ego death, but of like the acceptance of death. Because I mean, I've done
Yeah,
fucking salvia, I've done a bunch of incredibly strong psychedelics to the point because like
salvia is a psychedelic, is it?
salvia is insanely strong. Salvia is what I like to refer to as angry DMT.
I don't
Because
like it that much, man.
DMT will like grab you by the hand and be like, "Hey, I want," unless you snort it, in which case it hurts like a motherfucker, but then you break through and you're fine. But DMT is much more like takes you by the hand and it's like, "Hey, come with me. I want to show you some stuff."
I really want
And
to try
salvia is
that.
very much like, "Sit the fuck down, asshole. I got something to tell you." It's like, "Okay, all right, cool." I don't like
Yeah,
salvia. It's not fun.
no.
I've done it 4 times, but I'm not a huge fan.
First time I did, I was wearing headphones around my neck, and I felt like there's a snake on my neck. And this chick and you just laugh and shit. And this chick I was with when I was a teenager, she looked like she started turning into a witch. Like her face went green and shit. It was scary.
Yeah.
And we're outside of a convenience store, sitting at a
That's cool.
bench. And I was like, holy fuck. And then I did it with my buddy where once you do it, 2 or 3 times, you understand the buzz of it.
Yep.
And it's not as potent because then you understand like what your mind's going through. And my buddy did. I watched him just like sit there laughing. And he was saying that he felt like he was in a classroom and all these desks were flying by him. And he was just like, ha, ha, ha. And I was like sitting there like I like, it wasn't as potent for me because I've done it before.
Yeah.
And he was freaking out for like 20 minutes. So like, Jesus.
Well, like one of the most profound things that I ever had that came to me and it stuck with me and I'm grateful for it is during one trip I got home after tripping and I was laying in my bed and my heart was just racing and I started to have the thoughts where I was like, man, I've probably done too many things. I've not taken the greatest care of my body. I smoked cigarettes for way too long. I didn't eat very healthy or do exercise or all that shit. So I'm like, this might be it for me. My heart might just stop because it really feels weird.
Yeah.
And then my brain started thinking about it. And I got to the point where it was like, I die I go in the ground, I decompose, I feed the soil feeds the grass
Exactly what
feeds, and like
psychedelics
went into
do.
the full circle of life thing. And
Yeah.
by the time that thought process was done, I was so at peace with everything, where I was like, you
Mhm.
know what? Like, despite everything that's going on, this is just kind of the same as it's always been, and it will continue to always be this way. And
So
it's
true.
like, that
It allows
was
you to
like the
tap
most
into that stuff.
profound. Yeah, that was like the most profound thing that I ever had happen to me on psychedelics. Where it was like, oh,
I could probably, I gotta slow down doing higher doses probably because who knows, like, you're not supposed to be taking probably as often as I am, but I'm experimenting essentially. And, with my waking life of like, Chelsea's like, you're always on like a different level and it's sometimes hard. And I was like, no, I get it. Like, I gotta slow down a bit and then choose my perfect times. But because I'm so interested by it and trying all these different strains, now I want to categorize how I feel on them and then pick, okay, what one would I want for if I'm going out and doing something? What one would I want for this? And that will come later with my talks about psychedelics and stuff like that.
right. It's
So
medicine. You should use it, not
yeah.
abuse it. But anyways, Black Mirrors, yes.
So Black Mirror scrying is often scrying. Black Mirror scrying is often referred to as a magic mirror scrying, and it is
You're gonna do it
highly.
all episode. It's great.
God, I know. I don't know why my brain wants to pronounce it that way. And it's a highly effective psychic tool. It can impart hidden information and clairvoyant abilities to the user, as well as serve as a conduit to other realms of existence, which makes sense because it's like a Ouija board. You are the conduit for the spirit to talk through.
Yes.
So many many traditional mystery schools, which will probably come down the road, and I think that I'm sure me and you will end up talking about it. And like oracle temples have been used. They used it in the past,
So
and
the Golden Dawn's
yeah.
real, very big advocates of scrying.
Yeah, and obviously this goes way back in the day too. The historic traditions of black scrying mirrors can now be rediscovered by serious students of the magical arts, and these practices are resurfacing. And the thing too is, I watched, didn't like it as much as I thought I would. Oh yeah, for body that's there's tons of different strains. There's over 200 different strains of fucking magic mushrooms.
Mm-hmm. Same thing
It,
as same thing as herb. It's just
it's
you
crazy.
crossbreed. They come from different regions, different
Different things
breeding.
do different things. Like, and they're all good for your brain. Every single strain is good for your brain, but some of them do different things.
So look into Paul Stamets. If
Oh
you have
yeah,
any questions about that, Stamets is a fucking, and
I
it's
love
not
that
just
brother.
psychedelic mushrooms that he talks about. It's everything, and the mushrooms are technically the immune system. A fungus is technically the immune
Yeah,
system of
of
planet
the
Earth.
earth. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy. And then you start to realize, holy shit, his talks, I got my buddy into it. It's pretty incredible. But like, this idea of like that you're using these magical properties and stuff like that, it is like kind of interesting because it goes back so far. And so I watched last night Hocus Pocus. Not gonna lie, it
Don't
wasn't that.
fucking say a single word to me about it. I haven't watched it yet. I don't want to hear anything.
Anyways, but I'm not gonna spoiler for anyone. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna say that they do dive into like almost, and it's a kids movie, and Chelsea's like, you gotta start looking into things so deeply. But I'm like, it's the use of like, it shows if you pay attention to the movie, the use of like right hand path magic and left hand path magic. They don't say it, but you can tell that
But
they're trying to reference it.
that's how it was in the first one too. The first one was literally, that was one of the cool things about the original Hocus Pocus, is that for a
Mhm.
Disney movie, you're like, this thing is dripping with occult lore.
Yeah,
Dripping. The black flame candle is a candle made out of
oh,
human fucking fat. Like,
that's
it's a
true.
thing. The book is essentially the Necronomicon. It's bound in
Yeah.
human skin. It's inked in blood, and like,
And I feel like if we don't talk about it this year, maybe next year we could do a Hocus Pocus 1 and 2,
yeah.
even through Aaron's show or your show, because that's kind of like that realm is your guys' thing. So it could be interesting to do a whole talk on that because it goes deep in movies and lore. And so scrying is the manic art of staring in or on upon a crystal or dark meal while relaxing the physical eyes. And yeah, I've heard that where you're like just relaxing, getting yourself in this like zone and allowing the inner psychic eyes to open. Like I would think like your third eye and receive desired visions or like information.
Yes.
Which makes a lot of sense to me, right? Like,
So you have to like decidedly unfocus everything in your brain. You have to be
yeah,
staring at this and essentially paying full attention to it while not paying attention to it at all. and then you just glance at it and you're like, you just try and do your
It gives
best
you
to
a
do your
trance,
you
sort
yeah,
of.
you do your tantric breathing exercises, you slow your heart rate, you focus, and you disassociate. And then once you've been able to successfully disassociate, that's when you start to get stuff.
It's so interesting because essentially, yeah, it's like when you like can stare at something, you know, when you're like in the classroom and you just fucking zone out and you like just stare at like
Yes,
because you're out of that's what I feel like you have to do is almost
that's a
like
Zen
that.
mind state. Like,
Yeah, it's like
yep.
I just like stare off. And the thing is, you can see things out of your peripherals. There's been times on mushrooms that I think I see something in my peripheral, like walk by or a shadow, and I'm like, it's not. And I asked the last trip I was on, I was like, is something there? Like, is something around me? Because I always talk to myself, especially when I'm alone. And my buddy was like, I can't believe you do psychedelics alone. I was like, I've done them numerous times alone now, like 4 or 5 times. And I like it because you dive deeper into yourself and stuff like that. And there's been times like on Friday when Chelsea was away, I was like, is there something around me? Like when I'm talking to myself and like thinking about these things and say and verbalizing it. I was like, something around me. I was like, could you knock twice? And I was like, and then when that thought, I was like, maybe don't do that. I don't want to fucking, you know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to, if I heard that and on psychedelics, you have like no fear.
Yeah.
Really, like there's no fear involved with stuff, but then
Curiosity more than anything, I think,
oh
with
man,
psychedelics.
it's
I mean, you
fucking
can
weird.
get the fear. It's
Yeah,
the fear is very much a mind state that many psychedelic users from the 60s will vividly describe.
yeah. So
Have you
it's
done mushrooms in the snow yet?
no, which I'm curious about. This will be
Bro.
interesting. I
I
gotta do it.
so the last time I did mushrooms in the snow, no, actually, sorry, just 2 times ago that I did mushrooms in the snow, because the last time I did it, they weren't very potent at all, and the
Yeah.
most I got was we were out camping, and we were sitting on Thunder Rocks, and I'm looking up at the tree line, and all I got was this blue fractal along the tree lines, and I was like,
Oh,
neat, but that was it. That was literally it. But the time before that, it was snowing really bad, and I was still living in my old place. And I was like, dude, I got some fucking mushrooms. I'm bored as shit. I got the next 3 days off. I'm gonna pop some mushrooms and go for a walk. And I put on
oh,
like
that's
black
crazy. That'd be
metal.
fun. Oh,
I put
that's
on
fucking
like straight up Norwegian black metal in my
can't
fucking
do that
headphones,
on
which just
psychedelics.
it's like burst them and shit. So it's like wah, just fucking like stupid tones and like heavy shit.
Yeah.
And I'm walking through and I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking turn into a wolf and I'm just gonna run. I'm just gonna
It's funny how different music taps into different things. Where I showed you, I'm really into London Grammar now. This
yeah.
artist is amazing. Her voice is incredible, and all her songs always make me cry. Like they do. They're so like heart. They pluck your heartstrings. But then if you get into like I like NF, this rapper that Billy likes, but he's like very like he's different. And the actually I've joked to Billy, it kind of looks like him. He's a skinny white dude, but it changes like your mood. Where all of a sudden I'm pumped up. His music makes me pumped. Where then if you switch, you can cry like in an instant
Yeah.
of like it's crazy.
So
Obviously,
I think I have a theory that a lot of that has to do with the bass and the heavy tones, because like bass and
yeah,
drums are directly connected to our hearts. Like if you
no,
think
it's
about it, the reason drumming is such a primal like
yeah,
it's because it's our heartbeats and it's like we connect to that, and like being in a group of people and stuff. Like at least that's just my theory, and you know I could be completely off the mark on this, but that's just something that's always like kind of associated in my
yeah, and
brain.
that's why I'm excited to dive down this maybe psychedelic podcast realm of doing videos about it. And that's we'll get into different things as we talk about these subjects because we're looking like this is our lives and our like waking life beyond the podcast and stuff like that. Because I did have that really powerful trip where I was like shitting myself all night, sweating, and then like I went outside and like it was not raining, but there was thunder and like not even thunder, there was just lightning, and I could see it over the trees. And I stood there, I was like, this is fucking so trippy. It was fucking crazy. And I'll get into my
You know,
trips and you will and stuff like that when we talk about that side of the podcast. And
you know what else music helps with? It helps with visualizing when you are scrying.
oh yeah,
You put on some like some tribal stuff in the background, or
I could
even just
see that. I
a
could see
nice
that.
low beat, like not enough to draw your attention away from it, but just to be in the background and kind of help your mind get to a place. Like very similar
Do you
with
think
psychedelics.
binaural beats would help? Like some
Yeah,
sort of binaural beats with headphones?
I've
I
never
feel like
tried it. So here's my thing with binaural beats is that very much could be like we don't know like whoever made them. Like if you make them yourself, sure, because you know the intention behind it. But what if somebody is trying to use these to psychically attack you?
Yeah, that's where it gets dangerous. And eventually this will dive into stuff like that we'll talk about when it comes to like psychic vampires. Could be in a whole episode because I believe that people out there really like this, even if they may not even fucking know it. And they're like draining people's energies and shit like that.
We all have met psychic vampires at some point in our life. It doesn't
100%.
mean that they are, Colin Robinson and they're this ethereal
Yeah.
being, but I personally know at least 3 people that I would consider psychic vampires, because when you spend any amount of time around them, you're just like,
Oh, you're
oh
draining
my
me. You're
fucking God, would you stop? Like,
Yes.
yeah, and you're physically drained and it alters your mood. And to me, that is
So
the
true.
definition of a psychic vampire.
So, and like you want to go into a trance. The whole idea is like getting
Yes.
yourself set to go inside like this trance, so you're able to use this to tap into things beyond our realm. And it can serve as a focus point for visualization, as well as a portal to the astral dimension, and it gives you supposedly access to the Akashic records. Which, do you want to just briefly talk about the Akashic records, because I think we'll eventually talk about it.
So I might be off the mark here with remembering, but the Akashic records, if memory serves, is basically the library that exists on the astral plane.
Yeah,
it is where
our
the sum of
lives.
the universe's knowledge
Mhm.
is stored. That's the place that you go to if you're seeking answers that aren't available on this
Yeah.
world.
That makes sense. So while many describe it or explain the concept in different ways, in essence, the Akashic records are believed to be a fucking goddamn it,
Repository.
repository. Jesus, man, I should fucking take 3 pills of every thought, word, and deed of every living being, good, bad, and awful, in all times, past, present, and future.
So basically, like when
It's
you're,
everything.
yeah, like
The
that
record
whole
of our
myth of
soul
the,
experience.
yeah, the whole myth of the St. Peter opening the book at the end of your life, or the idea. Sorry, I
Yeah.
don't mean to upset our
Like, oh,
Christian
you did
listeners.
this
I'm
wrong.
sure
You
of
did
which
this
there are
wrong.
fucking 2.
Yeah.
The book that they open and they're like, well, here is stored all of your deeds and your thoughts.
Yeah.
Which the thoughts thing I think is a little fucked up, because if you can be penalized for your thoughts, then what is the deal with intrusive thoughts?
Yeah, I know, because I
It should be your
believe
actions, not your
well,
thoughts.
yeah, you're like, because there could be, I believe in people like, David, I can, amongst other people, talk about this, where if sometimes you think a thought that's not yours, you're like, why am I thinking this? And there's this idea that darker energies can actually influence your mind and your
Mhm.
thoughts, and trickle things that are bad inside your mind. So it could lead you to do bad things. Maybe Jeffrey Dahmer or fucking Ted Bundy, people like that, where they maybe get possessed or have someone tap into that subconscious and make fucking monsters. And I believe that's possible. I always thought that serial killers could be possessed.
I think
So
you have to actively take that first step
yeah,
necessarily. So I think in Dahmer's case, if he would have never killed the first person, he might not have been open to
just
that. But I
need a
think
boyfriend,
maybe
man.
when you're, he needed a fucking good mental health
Yeah,
practitioner.
I
He
know.
needed a society that was a little more accepting and open. But there are plenty of people who went through the same shit that he went through and
And we're
didn't
fine.
end up
I
fucking
said that to
killed.
Chelsea
I
too.
wouldn't say they were fine. I would say they're still extremely damaged individuals,
Hmm.
but they didn't go on, a murder spree. They
Yeah,
didn't
and that's
become
what's like.
cannibals. That's
What's
I
that
think
missing?
I think what part of it is when you give into that, the darkness inside of you, that everything else just slips away.
It's
Like, it's the
in
same way
yeah,
that, like, if somebody starts doing heroin, they're not going to
yeah.
think twice about doing crack, you know?
No. And the thing is
So
too, yeah, and that's also coming too. Is I really want to dissect. We've covered him in the past with me and Billy, but me and Aaron and Anton are talking about actually dissecting the whole series. And I really just want to talk about him as a person and like his dad, and how this show really shows all the different aspects of his life. And I said strike while the iron's hot because it's very interesting.
yeah.
And I think all of our thoughts will be very different, but also the same on this. So, and then it's crazy if this exists. And I think that it's quite possible it could, where it's like essentially the infinite memories of every single person, every living soul. And it's just kind of like stored of records of like your soul journey. You know what I mean? Like in listening to the book, The Law of One, I want to get onto the second book, but essentially it's kind of the same thing, where it's just like people are able to these beings and higher levels, and how you can reach higher consciousness, like the Akashic records are they're stored of all the experiences of every soul, which is fucked if that exists. So, but those familiar with their records report that there is no judgment or implied penalties in the records because, like, it's just you're living in this experience and there's no judgment beyond this
It's
because it's
just a
just an
story.
experience, and you're allowing yourself what's that fucking thing where it's like you're the one infinite creator experiencing itself and shit like that. Like,
What was the Bill Hicks bit where he's like, I want to hear a positive fucking acid story. Today, a young man on acid realized that we are all just matter condensed to a slow vibration, experiencing itself subjectively through the eyes of many. There is no such thing as death, and we are but the imagination of ourselves.
that's not, it's kind of true. It, like, that does make sense. And
I think that's the thing that every experienced psychedelic user has come.
mhm,
That's a epiphany that they've all come to at one point in time. Because then you just well, you know how it is, and not to get back on the psychedelics thing, but you know how it
yeah.
is when you're in the midst of a heavy trip and you're having these profound thoughts,
Oh
or at
yeah.
least what we perceive to be profound when we're on the trip, and it's just like you get to almost completely visualize the circle of life in every like connective tissue where it's like I get it. Like that's the
Yeah.
only thing I can really describe is that
It's
every
true.
now and again during a heavy enough trip, if you're in the right mind state, you will get that point where you're like, I get it. This
Mhm.
all makes sense now, and it's like it's okay. Everything is just gonna be okay. You
It
know?
allows your mind to change, and like I feel better and I feel more happy and caring for people and shit like that. And it has changed my life is why I want to talk more about it.
Yeah.
So essentially it's pretty much it's simply a record of each soul's journey through the infinite. That's literally what it is.
It's your
And
story.
it allows you to communicate with higher realms of the subconscious. And conventionally, crystal balls is obviously a wonderful instrument as well, although it is more difficult to scry with or using it more pricey. Oh, it's usually more pricey. So
Yeah, when
to
I was
actually
reading that,
create a crystal ball.
I was like, man, I'm like, scrying mirrors really aren't that pricey. And then I realized that they were talking about crystal balls. I was like, yeah, that is fucking expensive. It's a ball of crystal.
Yeah.
Like that has to be cut, it has to be smoothed, it has to be shaped, it has to be polished. It can't have too many imperfections in it, though personally I do prefer using crystal balls with minor imperfections
Yeah.
because it adds to it a little bit, but you really do want a clear
Well, I'm wondering
mode
if,
to
like,
scry into.
part of me, because of psychedelic stuff like that, obviously, part of me is like, do crystals work? Like, I want to actually do an episode about crystals and then dive into the research. And be like, hey, can these things actually help people? Is it connecting your energies? In certain crystals, do different things? Because I know people are into them. Like, is it? Does it actually work? Like, so I
I
want to
don't know.
dive into that also down the road too. So there are several ways to scry with a black mirror. Here's what we're going to talk about. There's two, okay? The how to scry for divination and how to scry for how would you like evocation? Um
Evocation,
evocation because I've never heard that word before.
summoning.
So oh weird.
You're trying to evoke something.
That's interesting. So to get started, you need to do a little step up. First, your mirror step up should look, I guess you would think with something like this, you need something black. Place the black mirror at an angle where it reflects little to nothing is how you kind of want it. You don't want it to really reflect on much of anything.
So
And
if you wish, you can also do essentially a full circle in front so you can see the reflection and then you can focus on that and try and conjure something within the circle as well.
that makes sense. Because like so you put it at an angle and it reflects little nothing, maybe it may be kind of difficult, but you just try your best. And you can place it on an altar if you wish, and we're not talking about like a Jeffrey Dahmer altar, we're talking about just like a fucking I
Anything you
don't
use that you turn into a sacred place is an
yeah,
altar. So let's
yeah,
let's get that definition on here. It doesn't have to be a stone slab with an inverse pentacle on it, or
mhm,
the sigil of Baphomet on it, or anything that you don't want. It just has to be a sacred place that you use to do your magical workings. So technically, you can grab your magical accoutrement, go out to the forest, which is something I prefer to do. Go out to the woods where you're not going to be bothered. Get a
yeah,
nice little stone slab or a piece of bark, like anything the woods offers you up as a tool. You know what I mean? Like, don't go peel a piece of bark off of a tree. You're supposed to take a gift from the forest, and don't take without leaving. So I always like to bring a little bit of tobacco or something with me. And if you know the spirit of the forest gives you a gift, you leave a little bit of an offering.
What if I like pee on a tree and be like, here's a little bit of me, forest.
Only if you're tripping on mushrooms, because if you're tripping on mushrooms and you pissed out the spores, it could cause them to grow there. So
yeah, that would be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So obviously,
you go take a shit next to a tree when you're tripping, when you're coming down, you come back 3 days later and you're like,
whoa, mushrooms,
baby.
So if you wish, cast a circle in front of the black mirror so you can easily see it from the center of the circle. Do any protection rituals. Obviously, this is where you do them. Place a light. Place and then light a candle on either side of the mirror, which I've heard it depends. You can use black candles. You can use probably any style candle. It's the same way when you're doing like folklore ritual stuff, like, you know, Bloody Mary is having like a dark black candle while you're doing this, which eventually, who knows, you might dive deeper into the idea of Bloody Marys, because it is interesting. And you can use the same color or different. It doesn't really matter. If in doubt, put 2 tea light candles on either side. Generally, a good scrying session will burn 2 to 3 tea lights, I guess, around the mirror. It ultimately doesn't matter all that much what you do. And like we've talked about with magic before, it's all about intention. Yes. It's always about intention.
The color candles help you visualize your intention. So say you're doing a ritual because you're like, I want money, and you're doing some chaos magic fucking money shit. Green candles will help you. Or depending on for your case, pink and blue, because you have weird Monopoly money.
True.
But so anything that really it helps to evoke and solidify your intent, it really is just a matter of focusing and trying to visualize what you're attempting to do as much as possible, while also shutting your brain off, which is what is very difficult for most beginners to wrap their heads around. Is like, you have to be focused yet completely open.
That's why, psychedelics allows you to tap into that side, but it's hard. Meditation is hard for me, and even my buddy that's known me since I was like, and he used psychedelics, and we've been talking more because he's going through his own shit, and he's like, you don't know how to quiet your mind. He's like, as long as I've known you, you always have music going. I sleep with the fan on. Like, I don't like silence, because silence necessarily scares me to dive deep inside my mind in that way. It's in a sober mind, where I could do it like probably silence on shrooms and stuff like that, but it's just, I don't like meditation, and I've tried astral projection. It generally kind of scares me, because I feel like if something happens, I'm going to be lost. I don't know how, it's not the best way to say it, but
I think when you've lived through a certain amount of trauma, and when you've had as much psychic damage as say you or I have had, it becomes very difficult to shut it off.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
But also, to me, that almost seems like you're open to more, because you're under constant bombardment from everything around you. So
that's true. So the real key is putting the candles in the right place. You want them to the side or a little in front of the mirror, so it's fully illuminated, but the candles are not reflected. So it's still like light and kind of hitting it. But options, obviously, you can burn incense in front of the mirror, as you kind of said. Especially slow burning resin on a coil helps people see things in the mirror more easily. Some people says it doesn't affect much, but it might actually allow you to help. So then you need to get a lower brain wave state. So meditate for long enough to get into and maintain a deep relaxation state of magic. And obviously you got to do that. You really and I'm sure it would be interesting to take like a gram, 2, even 3, especially it depends on what kind of strain of something like a psychedelic or LSD, and try to get in that mindset and do this. I wonder if you could invoke anything. Like, because your mind is also on a different level.
Absolutely. We've when I was traveling, I firmly believe that we invoked a couple forest spirits to help guide us and make sure that we got to where we were going safe. Because we had a couple times where there was like a deer that would just show up, like, and it looked like the same deer every time, and it was like it would show up in places that there was no way that it could have gotten into. Like, one of the places it got into was this fenced off like hydro pump area that was just a tiny stone building surrounded by fence that was way too high to jump, and it was just chilling in the fence. And then, we gave it its proper respect, and it turned and walked away. And then I was like, you know what? I'm curious. I'm going to go walk around the fence to see if it got out. And there was no hole in the fence anywhere.
That's
So
kind of crazy because I would love to, especially hopefully in the future, do psychedelics with you and be able to go do something or go camping and stuff like that. Like it's starting to loosen where Canada, people are starting to get visibly very angry about what the government is doing, and it's
I
going
think
to come to a
shithead's
head
on its way
eventually.
out. I think
Yeah.
you guys are all about to be like, this
Look
ain't ever happening again.
Hey, look what happened out east. Okay, they had a big fucking storm, right? Like it was really bad. A lot of flooding and stuff like that in Nova Scotia and stuff like that. And he wanted people to donate to the Red Cross, and he will match the donations of our own money to the Red Cross. But
Yeah.
he gave $2 billion to the UN of our money. So it's so hypocritical. He doesn't want to help his own citizens out. It's fucking sad where Canada is right now. And I'm trying to be as positive as possible, but the government hates you. Just get used to it and fucking wake up to that, because
I don't even think the government hates you. The government is so indifferent to you and your suffering that it feels like hatred, but it really is just negligence.
Yeah. So obviously, when you get in these flow states, essentially these brainwave states, like a flow state, like how you can, when you're
Like
doing microdosing and you can like keep writing, like it gets you in this flow state of like, right. So it's kind of like relaxing everything.
So that's the thing, that a lot of people who practice tantric yoga and meditation and, like tantric sexual practices and what have you, view psychedelics as a shortcut.
Yeah,
Like they almost look down upon them. They look down their nose at them where they're like, you can't do it naturally. You have to take these things.
Yes,
and it's like, dude, it's a fucking
from the
tried,
earth.
tested, and true medicine.
Yeah.
Like if you're not don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people that abuse the medicine, but that's like the old, adage that all shamans used to know, which is, what's the difference between a medicine and a poison? The dose.
That's fucking true.
Yeah. Like more often than not, like you can use something that would be considered toxic in a small enough dose to heal,
Yeah,
not everything, obviously, but that really only applies to natural type shit, not man-made shit.
Yeah, not
Flipper hemlock. Don't drink hemlock, kids.
Yeah. So by this time, and we're meeting kind of like a 3 to 20 minute thing of just getting your brain in like a relaxed position. And, it could be 3 to 5 minutes of straight, like without thoughts interrupting you. It's just kind of clearing your mind. If you cannot do this, stop here and practice meditation for a while until you can. Meditation is the core skill for most occult work, and particularly scrying. So like you have to get in these states. So if you have no occult skills, this is the first place to start, is by meditating. Train your focus to be able to stay focused on one thing for at least 3 minutes at a time, and you may be able to find success with scrying without learning to meditate, but the deck is stacked against you. So this is something that I would like to work on, and I've thought about doing, more or less like right hand magic and trying to do stuff like, what I want out of life, where I want this show to go, how successful I want this show to be, is trying to do stuff like that to put it out in the ethos. And I feel like I do that by just thinking about it on psychedelics or just in everyday waking life. Hey, this is going to be really successful. We're going to get more and more people and connect to more and more people so they can really enjoy our show. And we're going to spread out when our wings are going to spread. I'm going to fucking fly. I'm a peacock. I need to fly. Okay. So peacocks can't fly, can they? Can peacocks fly?
A little bit. Are you not remembering the other guys? I thought you were doing the bit from the other guys.
That's right I was.
They don't fly, okay? They do fly. Yeah, about as much as a chicken.
Yeah, that's true. So from here, you can scry with a black mirror for divination, or you can use a black mirror to invoke a demon, which is not always the best practice because, like, you got to be careful with these things. It can ruin your fucking life.
It can, and it really depends on which aspect of demon evocation and invocation you are attempting to use, because there are two very different schools of thought when it comes to evoking demons, which is you have demonology, which is the old school Solomonic, by the 7 holy names of God, I bind you to my will, demon. And then you have demonolatry, which is basically like, hey buddy, what's up? You wanna hang out for a little bit? You wanna talk? You wanna what do you got for me? What's going on? Let's chat. And that's essentially treating the being with dignity and respect and not talking down to it like, oh, by the names of God, I bind you to my will, which tends to piss these things off. It's much more of a, like, if you're not dealing with an out and out trickster, you might get better results that way, but you're also opening yourself up with zero protection. So it's summoner beware.
I agree. Do you want to get in the divination, or you want
Yeah,
me to
I
keep?
actually, I'm
Okay.
totally down for that. So,
Okay.
divination is an attempt to gain insight into a question or situation by way of occultic, standardized process or ritual, as we were talking about with setting the scene, if you will, like your candles there and your incense burning and
Yeah.
your meditation, and you have to. That's the thing with occult rituals. There are two very important things to start when you're beginning occultist. One,
Mm.
if you say something, do it. Because what that does is it binds your words to truth, essentially. So you're like, oh, I'll be there at 4. Don't show up at 5. Show up at 4. Because people will know, be like, when he speaks something, it is done. So it
Yeah.
becomes that mindset of when I use my
My
magic,
word
my
is
words.
bond, motherfucker.
Exactly. Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then the other is, of course, meditating. Meditate every fucking day, even if it's for 5 minutes. If you can only meditate for 5 minutes and you can only focus your brain to do it for 5 minutes. Because pretty soon that 5 is going to turn into 7, that's going to turn into 10, that's going to turn into a half an hour, that's going to you'll be able to eventually keep going. But don't set goals that are so lofty that you won't achieve them, because it will set you back. Start small. If you can only do 2 minutes, start with 2 minutes. Do 2 minutes every fucking day.
Because my brain is like, you've noticed it. I just my brain's fucking crazy. It works so fast, especially because I'm using a lion's mane and cordyceps and stuff like that. Yeah. It helps with cognitive ability, but it also makes me like.
It doesn't slow you down. It speeds you up.
Yeah, that's great.
But so anyone that's ever meditated for any long period of time will know you can meditate for a half an hour, set a timer on your phone, and just sit in stillness for half an hour. Mm. It's going to feel like 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's not going to move slowly. So,
divination is the attempt to gain insight.
I already read that part. Standardized practice, ritual in various forms throughout history, a process reading signs, events, or omens, or through alleged contact with a supernatural age. Use this process. Mm-hmm. So start with the steps above. Then look at the mirror with soft focus. Like I was saying, kind of focused, but not focused.
Yeah.
Soft focus means to focus your vision just a little before or a little behind the mirror.
Oh, yeah, you're supposed to stare. You're supposed to not stare directly at
through it.
You're supposed to stare through it. Like how people say, if you're someone out there that has an issue with looking people in the eyes, you stare in the middle of their forehead.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're staring in their eyes. That's a technique people use.
Oh, I'm gonna have to use that because my autism comes through and it's like I can't really.
You stare at their point and the middle of their forehead.
So your vision of the mirror should look like it's slightly out of focus picture. The easiest way to do this is to focus your vision so that you can see the whole mirror, but your vision is focused about an inch or two in front of the mirror. Look at the mirror with that soft focus for several minutes. You can blink regularly. As you stare, the mirror will sort of fog over. This is one of those instances where the smoke or the incense helps because it's already starting to fog.
That makes sense.
It'll either just look a little hazy and grayer, or it'll cloud over or do something similar. Both are good responses and and are somewhat happening because of a biological mechanism about vision in general. Yeah. Your eyes have a hard time focusing on just one thing for long periods of time. I think that is something that evolves from us when we were still prey. It has to be you have to be focused on predators and everything like that.
And now until cell phones and short attention spans.
Yes. But this response is the beginning of the process. So until this happens, you're not going to get very far. This is a place where you either succeed or you don't. You have issues. Just keep practicing until this happens. Like I was saying, if you can't meditate for 5 minutes, meditate for 2.
Yeah, just try
doing that. Consistent. Yeah. Once it fogs over, keep looking with an open, clear mind and soft focus. You will likely begin to see or think about things. Just go with it and let yourself have the experience for as long as you need to. So a thing when people say, clear your mind or whatever, it doesn't mean your mind is completely blank. It means that you're in an open and susceptible state. So you don't necessarily need to bat away the thoughts, but more like allow them to, like Tai Chi, where people are just moving for energy and stuff like that. And it's very fluid flowing. So treat it like that. Like a thought comes, you look at it, you observe it, and you push it away. And a thought comes and you observe it and you look at it and you push it away.
That's interesting. That's the shit I want to get better at is quieting my mind and allowing me to calm down a bit, because I have so much going on with the show and my life and everything. That's just I have so many, I got to get this done, edit this has got to be done. It's oh my, especially recently, it's so much shit going on, but it's
so easy to get overwhelmed.
Oh yeah. So at first you
may get little to nothing. This is normal. Just keep working on it. This is going to be like developing a muscle. Like if you can only do a quarter of a pull-up, it's probably going to take you a while before you can do 100 pull-ups. Just keep practicing until you get it. Again, same thing, 2 minutes, not 10.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll get to being able to do it for an hour. And often you'll see things in your internal vision, like your imaginations rather than directly on the mirror. This is okay. All you really want are the visions. So just explore the process until you get it to work.
Mm-hmm. It is kind of cool because like I don't know, like it's just like you got to be careful with all this magic stuff. You know what I mean? It's you got because this you can open up a door that maybe necessarily don't want to.
I think it's less that and more you can open up a door, but it's not necessarily like, oh, I've opened up a door and some entity has taken a hold of me. It's more I've opened up a door and I've learned some things about myself that I was not prepared to learn.
Well, it's hard because even like when I did that Graham and I watched The Witch, which is coming, it will be out by the time this comes out. And I said to Aaron, I was like, afterwards, like when I was walking back to the house and I took a Graham, we watched The Witch. I felt, and me and Chelsea also spoke about like hauntings that we like in houses that we felt bad energy at, like one of these houses I grew up with, like. I grew up in and stuff like that. So I was in this weird, like spooky mode. And then I was thinking like, and after that movie of like the thing about the black magic and the dark arts and how it still exists and all that stuff, I was like, should I shouldn't have used the Ouija board. And I was like having these thoughts. And then when I'm sober, I'm like, whatever, I don't care about it. But I was like, it was giving me like these bad, creepy feelings. Like, maybe because this Ouija board once said to me that I had 9 spirits attached to me, some good, some bad. And I always think of that because I was like, it's weird. What is following me around? Maybe.
So, but here's the thing. There's good and bad in all. And I think something that and maybe it's just me being a dumb Westerner and mixing
Yeah.
things together, but I think the marriage of East and West when it comes to magical philosophy is an invaluable tool. So like in Western occultism, you don't necessarily have that thought of like duality being an integral part of nature, where it's
Yeah.
like bad cannot exist without good, good cannot exist without bad, light cannot exist without dark type situation, where like in the West, it's much more like, no, these are demonic entities. This is God. God is good.
Yeah.
These are bad. There is no intermixing of the two.
But I've felt bad energy. I've felt it at
Of course,
houses.
but evil cannot exist without good. And there
Yeah,
needs
that's
to be
right.
a balance of some sort, which is why, like,
Okay.
you know, when you have the new age
Like Star
practitioners that are
Wars, right? Like,
all love and light, man,
yeah,
nothing but love and light, they're generally involved in some super dark shit. And I don't mean magic. I mean their personal lives are generally like,
yeah.
because they've not done their shadow work, as Jung would say. And anyone that tells you that their shadow work is complete is full of shit.
Oh
Your
no,
your
for
work
sure.
continues until you're no longer on this plane.
No, I agree because I'm working on my own stuff, like in like dealing with my mental health more than I've ever done in my life. And like obviously it goes in waves, but I'm generally trying to be like the happiest I can be and do that for other people. And like and I think that's why psychedelics are important.
You've
I
heard
do.
the whole focusing on happiness is a surefire way of disappointment, right? Too. Like you don't necessarily
Mhm.
want to focus on the end goal being like think of it like
No,
a genie wish or a monkey's paw, where it's like, I want this. It's like, but you're
yeah.
hyper fixated on that one thing and you don't understand all of the negative that can come with that, and you're not
Oh
prepared
no.
for it.
I just want to
So
be as like is like as the best version of me. Essentially, is what I want
exactly.
to do because
Yes.
I want to I notice now, and this is because of psilocybin, literally, that I'm more like conscious of like how other people feel, and I want to be more there for people and caring and loving and shit like that. Where before I was angry and too selfish. And now, like I'm learning not to be that way, and these things can change people's lives, and that's why I do want to do a show about it. So,
Remember, self-hatred is still an ego trip.
so true. So often you can see like internal visions, like maybe it's your imagination rather than like on like it might just be in your head too, and that's okay because you want visions. That's the process of the work, and you just kind of want to see inside yourself. And I'm sure that it happens within your mind, but basically you just look into the mirror's fog, keep an open mind, and let whatever comes through. Sometimes it's nonsense, sometimes it's really helpful. It's you either connecting with the like the unconscious mind or something like the universe itself as you see and have all these experiences. It's it's you got to actually it's just allowing you to kind of let go and I don't think it's necessarily dark forces because it might be like your higher self.
And it's a process. It's a
yeah,
magical practice. You're never
yeah,
going to be, like you can reach the ascended master state. But if you look at it, Crowley didn't reach ascended master. Blavatsky didn't reach ascended master.
no.
Like it's a thing. It's a
Crowley
whole
fucked
process.
little boys. Remember that?
And look, I've never seen proper evidence to say, like, to me, that's always been hearsay. I'm not saying Crowley was a good dude. He was a bastard. He was
Why was David
absolutely a
Icke
fucking
saying? Isn't
bastard.
David Icke's word the
No,
gospel?
David Icke's word is only gospel to you and millions of other people. But no,
Yeah,
no
true.
one's. See, I'm a
Almighty
I'm a Discordian, and I'm prohibited from believing anything that I read.
Yeah, that's true. So like you got now we're talking about like invoking something, and you can actually invoke and summon a demon. I wouldn't necessarily fuck. We're gonna put everything out there, but I wouldn't necessarily try this.
So, fun story. At a very tumultuous point in my life, I was engaging in mirror magic, just because I was very susceptible to a whole lot of shit, and I was like, you know what, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm gonna pull something through. So I sat there and I did the practice of essentially drawing myself into a mirror, which is you sit, you meditate, you do it however you want. I generally prefer to meditate skyclad, and for our practitioners that know what that is, good for you. But I'm not explaining it.
The fuck is that shit?
Not explaining it. Look it up.
Okay, this is sounds like a SoundCloud rapper.
You basically focus until you disappear
In the mirror.
In the
right?
mirror. Yeah,
Oh,
you basically enter into you have to disassociate enough that you watch your reflection. You just focus yourself getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Have you seen this? Have you done this?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. And without going into too much detail, I had something after that happened that liked to just hang out in the corner of my room quite a bit. Freaked a lot of people out. Didn't bother me a whole bunch. And eventually, it had to be banished just because it was freaking everybody else out.
Stuff? I know people that have, but I've never used it.
No, I saged, I Palo Alto'd, all of it, smudging. Basically, I didn't have to get forceful with it. It was much of a just like, hey, there's a great big world out there. You don't got to hang out here. This space is
careful because there's some forceful ghosts, man. Remember, I got fucking one molested me.
Yes, it's our sexy ghost episodes. But see, when I was a kid, though, I was very much into that idea where I was attempted to summon incubuses through blood magic.
Yeah, and I'm sure I was a stupid kid. When I told that story, I was like laughing because in my head, like I was a kid and I believed the Ouija board was telling me this, but I was like, where's this information coming from? And that's going to come later on of my experiences because the Ouija board episode is probably going to be fairly long, and that's our Halloween special, is because I have so many stories and people that I introduced, like my stepbrother, and it like he supposedly called Zozo and shit like that and did like some really like you couldn't, this is stuff you shouldn't do. Stuff I never did. How fucked up
would it be if you call Zozo and it's just Jimmy Page just shows up and locks you in a basement because you're a 14-year-old girl?
Yeah, I know. And like, it's just, I'm not saying that Zozo, that's who he called, but he started invoking where they started seeing things like in the darkness, like him and his brothers, and felt like weird and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be fucking messing around with this stuff. And he was saying that the demon was like doing like numerology, like just numbers. And I told like, this is from like a piece of paper and a shot glass and some marker, but because I was like, maybe I shouldn't have got him into this.
Dude, it's the same thing with psychedelics. Some people are just not ready for it. And you don't, that is the danger, I think, is you don't want to turn somebody onto it. That's just going to dabble. And B is not psychically or mentally prepared for what may come their way. And I said it's a
journey. I gave Billy microdose pills, and he told me he's like I didn't really feel much. And I was like, you're not supposed to. It's just supposed to help your brain. But he's like there was times of it. He's like, I did not like it. So I'm imagining the weird feelings you get in the sometimes your brain gets a little like foggy and stuff like that. And I said to him, I was like, you gotta let go, man, and shit. And he was like, what do you say? Suppress and oppress or something is how I live or something.
Suppress and repress. Billy's lock it away and don't deal with it. It's an effective strategy for some people.
So I was like, okay, man.
I don't think it's good or healthy in the long run. I think it's going to either lead to you, completely dissociating and becoming a fucking serial killer, or it's going to lead to you having a stroke because you haven't ever dealt with the shit that you're dealing with. So
I know, and I was like, like I was saying, people that want like that use or are interested in psychedelics, like I'm gonna repeat it because it's changing my life. But essentially, like that, like you got to know you want to take this journey, and you have to know that you want to fix your head. because if you're going into it just like, oh, this is for fun, it's not going to work. You're going to fuck up your head most likely.
I think for most people, it's absolutely necessary to have had a long dark night of the soul before entering into any occult practices.
Yeah.
You really have to have sat down and had a long,
100%.
hard look at who you are and what you want and what's going on. Or you start extremely young. You somehow get into it, when you're like 10, like I did, which is like,
yeah, I was like 11 or 12.
Yeah. It's like somehow it just like, I think some people are just drawn to the occult world. And those are the people that have.
It's who we are beyond this.
Yes, exactly. Where it's like, being a kid and either being a hyper aware or a hyper fixated child that's like, no, I can hear and I can see things that don't necessarily translate.
And I'm talking about this,
reality.
staring at the image on the screen of like, we have like for all the audio listeners, like it looks like a mirror with a lady looking through it. I was like actually getting kind of creeped out in my head. I was like just thinking about.
For all of our video listeners, if you guys are gonna, anybody wants to hang through and comb through, what I keep thinking of, my brain keeps thinking of, is the scrying mirror that I have right there.
Oh yeah.
Like maybe go through the whole video and see if even just one thing flashes up on it.
I didn't even think about that because
that's why I put it there
in the camera, and I'm like, oh, I would like to like see if I could find it. It'd be fucking crazy if something did move or you saw like a shadow.
Dude, when the shit fucking stops tweaking out and you can finally come out here, we should go do a ritual somewhere.
I would do it. I'm open to it, and I'm open to even using the Ouija board and stuff again, but like not in my home.
Yeah, no, let's go to the woods.
Mean?
We'll go to the forest somewhere. We'll go to the water.
Or like
I have really good
or something would be cool.
Yeah. Oh, dude, there's so many haunted hotels.
That's what I'm saying. We're like just seeing, hey, what's here, what's around. Just wanted to pop in and say, hey, and I feel like my energy is shifting. I feel like when I was a kid, I was depressed, angry, all this shit that was going on, in alcoholic, as drinking to suppress all my fucking bullshit. And I was using stuff like Ouija boards, and I was allowing these dark energies, I believe, to come into my life. And I feel like they cursed me. I felt cursed for a long time, where I kept thinking of these bad thoughts and going through all this bad shit. And I was like, what has happened to fucking me? Did I curse myself by using the Ouija board? But now I've noticed, as I'm like more love and light, as gay as that sounds, I feel that way and I feel like there's no energies around me that can fuck with me and stuff like that because of my mental state.
That's a strong thing, though. You invoked and then shed those negative things, because I have very similar experiences in life that we don't have time to go into right now. But it's very much like I for the longest time thought that I had some very negative shit attached to me because of the practices that I engaged in when I was a teenager. Like I would just summon whatever willy-nilly. And like dangerous. For a very long time thought that, well, I was a depressed kid and I didn't care. I was very much of the
said reptilians were talking to me, man. I don't know. And I was like,
great. I was attempting to fucking open the door to Azathoth to devour the world. Okay. I was very much a let's burn it all down kind of person. And I've reached a different point in my life at this point, which is like, I don't have that negativity attached to me in that regard. So.
Oh man, it's so crazy. It goes so deep with all this stuff. And and I wonder, do you notice how I've changed over the last couple months?
No, it's very apparent. I don't know if it's more apparent to our listeners that don't see you as much as I do, because I talk to you every day.
But if you go back in the show, I sound so different, even when we started, than how I think now and stuff. I would like listening to old episodes and I was like, okay, is there anything I need to cut? It's fucking weird.
Dude, psychedelics have done you so good. Like I really do. I do believe that. Just in the mild transformation that you've made, and since you started doing it,
I see it.
It's obvious.
It's pretty interesting, and it's just like, and my brother's like, you and Billy used to argue so much in the older episodes, and I was like, we were drunk, like he's like, especially the Cecil Hotel, which might be a Strange Brew redo. There's stuff I'm looking at maybe redoing, but he's like
fucking Zach Baggins documentary about it.
So
fucking hate that prick so much.
I watched it too. It was so corny. So obviously, for like talking about demons in general and evoking, you basically repeat like the process of the divination of using the mirror. But make contact with a spirit through a sigil or whatever you want, or simply I'm going to explain like what the sigil method is. Like, so as a sigil is a type of symbol used in magic. The term has usually referred to a type of pictorial signature of a deity or a spirit. So like what, like a picture?
So, you've seen the sigil. You've seen the sigil of Lucifer, right?
Isn't it like a painting in the game? That game I'm playing.
I'm going to share my screen
Agony.
for audio.
It shows.
our audio listeners.
Oh, that fucking
Or
chart.
our video viewers, not audio listeners. So share screen.
Share screen.
Okay.
Okay.
So this. Take the fucking picture off, Goomba.
Yeah.
So this is the sigil of Lucifer. So this is like what you would attempt to, like, it's not this. That's the sigil of Baphomet.
Is that, and that's what the Satanic Bible, like, if you see, yeah, it's right there.
The sigil of Baphomet is to evoke. It's not to evoke necessarily. That's a whole different thing. But that's the sigil. That's the Church of Satan. Whatever. So, but this is the.
That's what that douchebag tattoo artist has tattooed on his chest.
This
from Ink Master. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave Navarro is not a tattoo artist.
Oh yeah, he's just a guy. He's his favorite band. Yeah, I forgot about that. Fucking Dave Navarro.
Dave Navarro is like, look, if I could summon one demon to fuck me for the rest of eternity, it would be Dave.
It'd be him. He
Dude,
looks. Like
Dave Navarro looks like Satan, and I'm all about it.
I could definitely see that. So obviously, you want a sigil or some sort of essentially like, would you say like a symbolic, something that is in our culture? Like, you know, if you want to summon certain demons, they have certain symbols associated with them.
So all demons in the Goetia, so you have the high Goetia and the lesser Goetia, which is all the Solomonic magic. All demons have a sigil attached to them, but in a non-demonic fashion. So here, for example, this is something that's frequently used in chaos magic, and I use it myself quite a bit. This right here is a linking sigil. Weird. So say you are trying
to looks like a bunch of arrows for the audio listeners. It's
basically it's a sig rune with arrows on the end of it, and it's an L rune with arrows on the end of it on the points, and then a little dot behind the first jet down of the sig rune. And so say you're attempting to, let's just keep using the most superficial thing we can, money. You're attempting to invoke money. So take a dollar bill or coin or something, take a coin purse where you put some change in it or whatever, scratch that linking sigil into it, and whatever other sigil you want, because there are a couple methods, and Tom, I'll talk to you about this later outside of here. There are a couple methods of making your own sigils. And I found in my practice that is the most powerful way to do it.
Discuss that on the Halloween live special.
No, because yes, but no, you don't show other random people your sigils. That is something that is directly connected to you, and others can engage in attack on you by attacking that sigil.
Okay, that makes sense. I understand that, and like, it even says here that it's like it's kind of like chaos magic, but it says sigils refer to a symbolic representation of the practitioner's desired outcome.
Yes.
So yeah, money, like that's exactly, it's, you know what I mean? So like anything. So could you do like, could you be like, I want a bigger dick, and you just like set like a huge dildo? Like, you think that would do like work?
But again, monkey's paw rules, man. I want a bigger dick. You lose your dick in a horrific accident, and they attach a new one, or they don't attach a new one, and now you have to use a strap-on to please your partner, and it's way bigger than your actual dick, but it ain't your dick.
Is that a good movie? I feel like there's with the monkey paw movie. There's something like
it's an old story. There's been a billion movies with the monkey paw. My favorite is, of course, the Simpsons episode.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Turkey's a little dry. Oh God, the turkey's a little dry.
Or you have that great movie with Brendan Fraser in it.
She's
like a genie.
Bedazzled.
Yeah, it always goes wrong for him. Oh yeah, she is the devil.
It's a remake of an old movie too. She's the devil,
and it always goes wrong for him. Like he wants to be a basketball player.
Come on, man.
So it's like, so you gotta use the sigil. Like you can use that. You can also make an offering, like an incense or blood, which is fucking pretty crazy.
Incense, blood, or fluids.
You can pee on it or come on it.
Come on it. So those are the ones that I've practiced. I practiced blood and cum magic are generally the two strongest that I've used. Orgone. It's generally called orgone magic.
Yeah.
Goes back to Wilhelm Reich, who was considered a quack by most people. But
if I got into more of the occult stuff when I was like an emo kid, I could picture me be like, cutting my wrist.
See, I was a goth kid. I wasn't a fucking emo kid. At least that's what I told myself. But I was a fucking vile little Satanist bastard. But not in the like, I'm gonna go sacrifice animals. I was very much like, a person who followed the satanic tenets in LeVay's order, which is like, don't hurt other people, don't sacrifice animals. You are engaging in your will, and you are engaging in your will because the universe is uncaring and unknowing, and there is nothing out there that is going to help you other than what you invoke in yourself.
No, I
agree.
It is that makes sense.
Secular humanism is what LeVayan Satanism is generally called, because it's atheism.
Yeah, and that's coming. Probably we'll see like next year. We're doing the fucking before anyone else does it. We're doing a whole Satanism series.
Yes,
like talk like it's and
we're
our
hell series and everything like that.
Hell
it's just
series.
Life has been so fucking busy. I have not had a chance to write the hell episode up yet.
Yeah, because essentially going to be Hell, Hellfire Club, fucking LeVay Satanism, and then other branches of Satan. It's going to be a pretty interesting thing, and I shut that up because that's coming, and it is like I don't know,
Stay tuned.
Yeah, and then also eventually I'm gonna find pictures and stuff like that for the Patreon. Is we're gonna do an episode of show each other when we're like younger, and Aaron's gonna do it too, and like, just how ridiculous we all were as kids and teenagers and shit. So obviously you can make all this and open the sigil, and stare at the sigil. So the item or whatever you're using with the same kind of soft focus mentioned in the previous section, chant the entity's name or incantation, feel like you're opening yourself up to the entity, and the entity on the other side of the sigil is waiting for you to react, which is fucking quite scary actually.
For the love of all things self-preservation, know who and what you're speaking to before you call it forth.
Scary as fuck.
And it doesn't hurt if it's your first couple times and you're dealing with something new. It does not hurt to draw a protection thing around yourself.
And the person that I don't want to mention any names, I guess I kind of did, but nobody knows who he is. But essentially, like the person that I showed the Ouija board and stuff like that, and he got into like calling on demons, and he had a kind of hard life the past couple of years, and a weird life. So it's just like I believe that if you invoke something, it could essentially plague your life.
Oh, it'll knock you the fuck around. And I think in a lot of ways that's if you're not prepared to test your limits on what you can deal with. Like, so for me, I did a lot of my occult practices in high school. When I was a teenager, because for males, that's also like a time where you have the most energy. And especially too, if you haven't had sex yet, for a lot of people, it's supposedly stronger. I, kind of snipped that off really early, so it didn't really help. But it was something that like my late teen years and my early 20s were extremely rough. Homeless and like a whole bunch of really bad mental health shit and everything like that. And I think a lot of that could very well be tied to a lot of the practices that I engaged in, but they made me infinitely stronger.
Yeah, and I know I agree, and that makes sense too. And like, it's just about invoking this stuff, and like, you're kind of like, it's just you got to be careful, is what I'm saying, because you don't fucking know what you could be bringing into your life, because energies exist and frequencies exist. There's things beyond our reality that we'll never explain. And
are you going to go off and just you see somebody, you're like, I really like that person's shirt. You want to come hang out in my house for the next 6 hours? And that's all you know. That's literally it. Like, you're not going to do that. It's the same thing as inviting in that you don't know.
Some weirdo on the street, you're like, hey, fucking come hang out.
Come hang out inside my home and let me give you a tour of everything.
That's a good way of putting it. That's
tell you some really deep. Thank you. It's be cautious.
Yeah. So essentially, you're leaving yourself open, and you stare at the sigil, and now the sigil is open again. This may maybe it's a feeling, maybe you see something inside your mind, you kind of just go with it, and the connection begins. Don't kind of overthink this. And then when the sigil is open, turn your focus to the mirror and stare with soft focus, and imagine the sigil on the mirror and the representation. That game, and I would love to maybe show it on the Patreon a bit that I've been playing, is that agony game is crazy, because you like paint symbols with blood of sigils to open doorways and stuff in hell and in the realms of hell. And it's the game's beyond crazy. And it's like, it's a good representation of the image of what hell could be, even though I don't necessarily believe in it. So imagine the sigil on the other side, and all this fog starts to, how you see fog, it's getting all foggy, and it's foggy, bro. And then you just gotta imagine the sigil on the mirror. Just keep imagining it's there, and as the mirror goes over, you allow yourself to see the entity. At first, your focus, you may think you're seeing something, but maybe you aren't, and the skill you have to develop, and you most likely won't see anything at first, so pretending to see it is more helpful. So you're imagining in your mind's eye, is how I would kind of put it.
It's the fake it till you make it.
And then you thank the fucking entity for joining you, ask them a question for, guidance or whatever you want. At this point, you basically have just done the evocation.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? With them in the mirror, rather than something else. So do you want to talk about how to banish these things? And that's what we're kind of like, we'll end it on that kind of thing, because it's, we basically told you how to summon demons. So
Yes, we did tell you. Okay, so again, for
this is maybe a bad idea.
no, for everybody that is
shit.
listening to this, that is thinking about, hey, maybe I want to try this. Remember what I just said fucking less than 10 minutes ago. Know who you're speaking with. Know the
100%.
intent. You don't call a revenge demon because you want money. You don't call a revenge demon because you want your crush to notice you.
Yeah.
You call things that exist within those confines. So you have entities that are things that engage in knowledge and wisdom and insight or finances or love or revenge or this or that. It is a very specialized thing. You don't go to a fucking ear, nose, and throat doctor because you have prostate cancer.
Why not, man?
Because
maybe he's good at sniffing out the prostate
because
cancer.
They don't know that they're not experts in that field of medicine. Okay, that's why you want an expert in that field.
Yeah, and that's why you don't trust doctors that are paid by big pharma because they're trying to sell you something. So like you essentially want to banish these things out, right? That's the whole idea, is and end it as you wish. So do you want to get into a little more detail? Yeah, like how to banish these things and make sure that they're gone.
So where were we on that one?
It's the very, very bottom. It's just like ending
so
it,
at
and your
first you
thoughts
may
on
need
it
to force, or sorry, if you could only sort of imagine the sigil on the mirror, that's still good. Just imagine it and it feels like it's there. As the mirror fogs over, allow yourself to see the entity in the mirror. At first, you may need to force this a bit. Oh, yep, we already did that.
Yeah.
Banish
and as you wish.
So I hope this has demystified and simplified the process of Black Mirror scrying. It's kind of a complicated process, but mostly because it assumes you have specific magical skills that are already developed, as I've just said.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like, so, and you want it, would you kind of just end it like how a Ouija board, you say goodbye, like kind of get out of my surrounding, or
you say goodbye, you do the lesser banishing of the pentagram ritual. Again, if this is your first time, Delvic, could you close that fucking image, please? Thank you. If this is your first time delving into magical things, you don't, if it's your first time swimming, you don't go jump into the fucking ocean off of a boat.
Yeah.
Do not go into deeper waters than you are comfortable.
One of my hip hop lines was like, when you're researching this stuff, don't jump off the deep end, go in feet first. I have a rhyme or something, but put like dipping your toe in, essentially before you like dive. Make sure you dive feet first in, so then you're not like putting your head directly into the water and then something bad happen.
You need to baptize yourself in the waters before you think you can swim across the channel. Is the way that I've described it.
I really like this episode. It gets so like you can get deep in on this stuff and everything like that. Especially like because it's been a while since I feel like we've talked about like the occult and like that side of things. And then Halloween, this time is like a very much like brings that out of the, the death and decay of nature to bring nature again, in the end,
the period of transition,
solstice. Yeah. And it's like, so I feel like the energies do shift on the world and you can kind of feel it. And this gives a perfect spooky mood that we're going to get into the Ouija board too. And like a really in-depth episode about the Ouija board. Like it's going to be, I picture like 2.5 hours. So
did you watch the Ouija movies?
I liked them. I actually would revisit the Ouija board movies this year, and I'm sure like if I could convince Chelsea to watch them because some of them were actually fairly good. I remember
the original one being kind of just shitty, which was the one where just a bunch of teenagers with their dead friend and what have you. But I do remember Ouija Origin of Evil being pretty fucking good.
I remember that too, and it might be a good idea, like because there's so much content going on between our show, your show that's starting, and then Aaron's show, because we're all kind of connected on the umbrella of Host Heads Productions and shit like that.
Yeah, go check out the Reverend Kaiju's House of Trash and First Class Horror Vampires episode that's out.
Yeah. Oh, you already released it?
It'll be out by the time this episode's out.
Oh, that's dope. That's sick, because I think there's just a lot of stuff coming, as I'm saying. So we're able to go into these other realms because of the different shows that we all do and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to do some more movie and horror stuff and like talk about like maybe next year we can talk about the Ouija board horror movies.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
So,
figure
like,
we'll
there's
talk about those
topics.
on the episode.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we get into. I'm super excited. Thank you guys for tuning in.
We love all of
Everybody
you.
love everybody is the whole
Don't summon anything you're not prepared to deal with, people. I cannot fucking repeat this enough. Take it from people that have done it and have lived through it, and like you're not going to have a good time.
No. Or you'll be saying this. I was good to you, Mikey.
Did you get that? Because that's a frequent thing that we're saying in our stream. Wolf is always doing that. I was good to you, Mikey.
Yeah, yes, that's funny. And then when because me and Aaron talked about we watched Halloween 2, and that's coming for a commentary. We ripped it apart. We ripped it apart.
Sucks so bad.
I was like, why is this happening? Why is Rob Zombie's wife in this so often? Like, she's like, just why did they add her in this?
We're gonna put her on a white horse.
So strange, but wait for that one. You will love that. It's actually a really good episode because we really dive deep, and that's when we talk about getting into Rock Your Picture Show with you, because I didn't know that Aaron loves that movie too and shit. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Have you not seen my Creature of the Night shirt?
I don't think so. You're gonna have to wear that on that. So that's a huge thing coming too. There's a lot of stuff. So I'm excited to talk about all this stuff, and we hope you guys are too. And we hope you have a good Halloween. And remember, the live special is October 28th, 6:30 p.m. on Eastern time on like YouTube. Probably it'll be on Facebook and Twitch and all that stuff. So make sure you tune into that, because we want people to engage and to talk to us. And you can. We're going to get into the idea. So Anton, I think I've talked to you about this, is everyone's going to bring a scary story and a scary video. So, and it's going to be fucking fun. I'm so excited.
Hell of fuck yeah.
And then obviously the Halloween special about the Ouija board will come out the Halloween weekend. And like I said, the best time, like watch this stuff when the specials are happening. Make sure you tune on the YouTube, because it's meant for more of a visual.
Sure the fuck is.
Awesome. Well, everybody love everybody.
Stay strange and keep watching those guys.